Opposition, Senator Plitt.
Well, thank you very much, Chair, and that might allow me not to make my preamble. Welcome back, Minister. I was reflecting on your last appearance here, and with great respect for your office, I hope that this time will be a little more valuable to those of us that are asking questions. Last time you were here, Minister, you took 20% of my speaking time talking about things I had not asked about. You had very few answers for us and suggested that since the bill had passed unanimously in the other House, we should just very quickly do the same thing here. Yet this was not at all what happened, Minister. The bill passed unanimously only because your government introduced a programming motion and cut off debate and opportunities for any amendments. You threatened, I've got 10 minutes. You threatened and coerced members into supporting it unanimously. It was not an indication that they supported the way you handled your affairs over there. I am hoping that this is not how you plan to conduct your answers here today, because we have many important questions, and they will be coming, which need to be answered before we pass this bill. You are forcing us again into a very tight timeline because your government failed to heed the advice of our party 6 months ago and fix the broken rent assistance program. Now that you have finally gotten around to fixing the program, you failed to get the legislation right and needed to introduce an amendment, and you've already spoken about it. But you also failed to get the amendment right. And so now you are rushing us once again to pass the legislation. And once it is passed, it will need to be immediately amended, and even then it will still fall well short of what is required. But you are simply saying, trust us. So let me say this. When your predecessor was in front of this chamber and I asked him questions and asked for explicit answers, he asked the chair whether he needed to answer those questions and what our process in the chamber was. He was told by the chair that senators ask questions and ministers answer them. That is the process that I trust we will follow today. I have specific questions which I will give you in their entirety. These are questions which were asked to you and or your predecessor for which I don't yet have concrete answers. I would appreciate, Minister, specific answers from you, explicit, definitive answers, and if you are not able to, at this time, give me those answers, I will ask that you provide us those answers in writing before we are expected to vote on this bill on Thursday, before we're expected to vote on this bill. Minister, just about an hour ago, we received Bill C-9. And already this morning, the Prime Minister was calling for a quick Senate passage of COVID-19. We didn't even have the bill yet, and he wanted us to pass it. In 2014, Liberal leader Justin Trudeau said, and I quote, "If the Senate serves a purpose at all, it is to act as a check on the extraordinary power of the Prime Minister and his office." Now that he is in office, the Prime Minister is trying to shamefully use the pandemic to avoid accountability. This is another example of the lack of respect on parliamentary accountability process and the independence of this Senate. The government is responsible for setting the legislative agenda. They have prepared flawed legislation. They have prorogued Parliament in an attempt to cover up their wee scandal, which caused more delays. Let's be clear, Minister. The Trudeau government is the one that needs to do better. Our Finance Committee spent the entire break week pre-studying this bill. The Conservative Party of Canada will continue to support small businesses and ensure they get the support they need. Perhaps, Minister, the Prime Minister is now realizing the value of having a mechanism like a Liberal Senate caucus, as was part of the National Caucus, that he could count on to move his legislative agenda forward. So that's my preamble, Minister. Here are my questions. I'll ask them all, Minister. You can answer as many of them as you can before the chair cuts you off, and then you can send us the rest, and we're happy to send them to you in writing if you need. My first question: how much was spent on COVID measures so far by this government? How much was spent by Crown corporations, including loan guarantees? How much is the debt of the federal government as of today? What is the total debt of provincial governments as of today? What percentage of the federal government debt is owned by foreigners, and what percentage is owned by the Bank of Canada? How much of the federal government debt is for a term of less than 1 year, for a term of 1 year to 5 years, and for a term longer than 5 years? What is the average interest rate payable on the federal government debt? The next one is a question that Pierre Poilievre tried to get out of people in the House, and I think maybe even it was out of you that he was trying to get the answer. How much would an increase of 1% on interest rates on this debt cost the federal government? And finally, how many corporations made an application for the LEAF program, and how many applications were accepted? I think you probably have almost 5 minutes, Minister.
No, Madam Minister, you have 3.5 minutes to answer. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, both for the preamble and for the questions, Senator, and let me work my way through them. When it comes to money that the government has spent so far, I am very happy to give you our estimates of the costs of the programs that I'm asking you to review, and maybe I'll start there. I think that's very appropriate. Our estimate is that the emergency rent subsidy, which we have put before you, including the lockdown support, will cost $2.2 billion. That is between now and the period we're discussing, so to the 19th of December. And our estimate is the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, which we are asking to be extended until the summer of 2021, but we are proposing that the rate be set at 65% until December 19th. So our cost estimate now is until December 19th, that set rate date, that we will spend $65.5 billion on the wage subsidy. There are, of course, future periods, but I'm not going to offer estimates on those because we don't yet know what the rates will be. But as I have said, we are committed to having these two measures in place until June 2021. In terms of the government debt, I am not, Senators, going to offer new figures today. I will be providing you, Parliament, and Canadians with a fall fiscal update in the coming days, and that will include details of our spending so far and detailed fiscal projections. What I am delighted to do is to remind you of figures the government provided in the economic fiscal snapshot. And when we provided the economic fiscal snapshot, we projected that the 2021 deficit would be $343.2 billion, and we projected a debt of $1.06 trillion. As I said, I will offer up-to-date figures with the fall fiscal snapshot, but I will not be offering them today. On the other questions, let me sort of go through the ones I can. In terms of government debt right now, let me say a few things. As senators know, Canada today has a very favorable credit rating. We are rated AAA. As I said in my preamble, we have the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7, and the interest charges on Canada's debt as a share of our economy are today the lowest they have been in 100 years. That is notwithstanding the extraordinary expenditures which we have undertaken to fight COVID. So I very much...
I'm sorry, we have to move.